Jake and I will talk about external testing. The first being TOEFL versus IELTS. This is the slide full of acronyms. So I think I've said them 1,001 times, so I think I remember what they mean. Test of English as a foreign language and the International English Language Testing System. These are the two main tests, two main global tests of English language for university entrance. There are others, but these are the two main ones that a student takes. The IELTS, there is a testing center in Victoria. The TOEFL, I think, has moved, and the nearest testing center is Vancouver now. I often get the question from students, which one is better? There is no better. Universities all over the globe will accept both. The trend has been moving more towards taking the IELTS, but again, either is accepted. Each one is broken down into 4 bands. So there's reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The IELTS is out of 9. The TOEFL, or at least the internet-based test, is out of 120. Typical scores that the universities will require: 6.5, often on the IELTS, typically with no band less than 6. On the TOEFL, it'll be anywhere between 80 and 90. Now, more selective institutions, the most selective, will require 7 on the IELTS and about 100 on the TOEFL. But the big question, before I ramble on too much, who actually has to take this? In theory, any student with English as a second language has to take it. However, there are exemptions that the universities put in place because there are plenty of students who grow up in Canada with English as a second language, but they've grown up in an English language environment. Do they have to take it? No. So there's certain exemptions, like has the student studied in an English language school in an English language country for 3 years? Good, okay. Or an English language school in a non-English speaking country for 4 years? Good. Or do they have a critical reading score that's above, say, 650? I mean, the exemptions are different depending on the institution, and this is again where we can counsel the student and say, do you qualify for one of these exemptions, or no, are you better safe than sorry and you better take one of these 2 tests? And that about does it for TOEFL or IELTS.
We start talking about these testing systems when the students are in grade 10, and they even learn this sort of thing earlier than that. The eyes do gloss over a little bit when we get into the SAT system. There are so many acronyms. We have them do PSAT in grade 11 if they wish to. That's preliminary SAT. Then they can go on to the SAT reasoning test and SAT subject tests. They can do ACT. Are you tired of it yet? And we can decide whether, or they can decide whether one or the other of the testing systems is better for them by doing what we call the PRA, which is the Princeton Review Assessment. So the question comes up immediately in grade 10, do I have to do SAT testing or do I have to do ACT testing? And it depends on where they're going. Any university in the world appreciates standardized scores, but really only the US system requires standardized scores. And there are over 300 universities now and colleges that do not require the scores. However, most of the organizations that our kids are interested in do want those scores. So they want SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Testing, which changed its name to Scholastic Assessment and so on. They want that, or they want the ACT, American College Test. And they usually want a subject test as well, sometimes 2 subject tests, so that in the SAT version, there are these 2 levels, SAT reasoning and the SAT subject tests. For the ACT, it's a more amalgamated testing system, and there are different stripes in it, but there are not different levels. So which one to take, SAT or ACT? Well, the kids do the PRA if they wish to, the Princeton Review Assessment, in order to help them decide which would be the best testing system for them. Some simply do both. If they look up in a comparison of SAT and ACT, they find that the ACT questions tend to be more straightforward. The SAT has a stronger emphasis on vocabulary. The ACT has a science section, which SAT doesn't. So if they're really good at science and they want to show off a little bit, and ACT makes better sense maybe. But the ACT also tests more advanced math. So they have to measure these various factors to determine what would be best for them. The next question that comes up from the kids is, how do I prepare for these tests? And the first step is always to go onto the College Board website and create an account where they can then access a lot of different kinds of information. But the step after that is for them to go and see our extensions office, which is located up where two of the computer labs are in this Crotho building, and talk to those folks about when the testing occurs and what the prep courses are. We run the prep courses here at the school, and we're also a testing center here at the school. So the whole package is available to them here. They just have to search it out if they want to and do the preparation, maybe do a prep course, write the tests here, and feel quite comfortable about that. Another question that comes up quite often once they get into the SAT testing particularly has to do with the three elements of the test. SAT reasoning is tested across reading, writing, and mathematics. Many of the kids are academically aggressive and they want to do that test over again to try and do better, perhaps after having taken a prep course or done some tutoring to remediate weaknesses. Sometimes those weaknesses turn up in the preliminary test, the PSAT. So if they do the test over again, and we do get that question, how many times should I do this? There's no real answer to that other than if you have a lot of time, so much time that you're doing your SAT testing a fourth time or a fifth time, maybe some of that time should have been spent studying to prepare for the second version. But if they do multiple versions, they'll have multiple scores, and some universities will take the best reading and the best writing and the best math and put those together into what's called a super score. Other universities won't do that. But, you know, testing day can be a stressful time, and maybe you're not well, or maybe something happened in your personal life, or maybe it's just a bad test day. Although you did well on the math part. So somehow you can extract your best scores and put them together for most schools. Quite handy. I'll go on here.
So Jake jogged my memory. The one thing I was going to mention about TOEFL and IELTS is some students ask, can I super score, just like you can with the SAT? The answer is no. They will take the entire sitting, so you can't draw your best reading from one test sitting and your best writing from another test sitting. It doesn't work like the SAT that way. It's got to hit the score that the university wants all in one sitting. And the universities are very strict about it. Just if 6.5 is required, that's what they need. They couldn't care less if you have 8.5. They just need to see the 6.5. Moving on to where the acronyms really get out of control is the UK. But rather than go into the acronyms, it's easier to kind of classify them into two different categories. One is the set of tests that are required for very selective programs at selective institutions, and the two tests that are required for direct entry medical, dental, and veterinary programs. So we only have a handful of students each year who would require any of these tests, but it's worth going into detail. The BMAT and the UKCAT are the two tests that are required for direct entry dental, veterinary, medical programs in the UK. Most will require the UKCAT, and some will require the BMAT, which is the biomedical admissions test. Students should start studying towards the end of grade 11. There are online resources, what the UK calls specimen tests, previous tests that are available online to help them. In the case of the UKCAT, it's important to understand it works a bit like the SAT. It's meant as an aptitude test. I mean, to some extent you can draw on prior knowledge, but it's not really designed that way. It's designed to test, very basic and foundational logic and critical reasoning skills. In the other category are the tests that are required by certain programs, or courses as they call them in the UK, at Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial College, those sorts of more selective institutions. And so, for example, if you wanted to study classics at Cambridge, or if you wanted to study politics and philosophy and economics at Oxford, sometimes they have very specific tests that are required. And you have to find the nearest test center, which might not be all that near, and it's simply a requirement that you have to sit through it often for 2 to 3 hours, these tests. Those two are very different, and like I said, there's only a handful of students within the graduating class at the end of the day who need to take them, but it's very important for them to be aware. I think the students that I've spoken with are always aware if they're going into direct entry medical, dental, veterinary, that they need to take either the BMAT or the UKCAT. But oftentimes students are surprised when they're applying to a particular course of interest at Oxford or Cambridge that, but there's another test that's required, and they just finished the SAT or something like that. So again, that is part of the conversation that we have with the students, is just kind of keeping them afloat of all these acronyms and all these standardized tests that they would have to take.
It becomes a little mind-boggling after a while when you're dealing with all the score numbers. So I didn't punish you with the SAT scores, it's just too much at one time. It's a little easier to deal with the AP exams and their scoring system. Every year, probably I think it's in April, this room is filled for 2 lunch hours with students who are registering for AP exams, filling out the registration form. So AP is a very significant part of our academic program, and it's also a program created by the College Board in the US. It means advanced placement, and they created it to take an overwhelming number of high school graduates and move them right through first-year university courses into second year without having to take the first-year course. So an AP course is actually a first-year university course. And taking that gives the student a tremendous enrichment of curriculum, allows them to study at a higher level in an intense curriculum structure, and it also gives them credit at a university. So one can take an AP course credit to most universities, and if it's a good enough score, it's a Pentine system. If it's a 3, 4, or 5, many universities will give you credit for the first year equivalent at their university, and you can go on into the second year course. So the really mercenary view of this is, well, if I get 5 really good AP scores and take them to UBC, I can go directly into second year. And indeed, that's true, and some students do that. But the vast majority of students don't do that. They've taken the AP for the enrichment purpose. They wanted to study at a higher level, and they wanted to be more interested in what they were doing, and they simply take those courses over again when they get to the university. The odd university will not permit that because they see it as GPA padding. So McGill University, for example, will want you to go into the second year course, and they don't allow you to take the first year course over again. Now, the AP system originally was just an examination system. Now there's a full course that goes along with every AP examination. And in this school, we insist that if students want to take the AP exam, they must take our course. And we insist that if they take our course, they should take the exam. There are very few exceptions made along those lines. It would usually only be for health reasons. So AP is a wonderful situation. It's a great thing to have on your transcript. If a student from this school is applying to a competitive US university, that university is going to expect to see AP on the transcript, and not just one course, multiple courses. This is the top AP school in Canada. We have better score means and better results than anybody else, really. And so the university looks at it and goes, look, you have all these courses at your disposal. You should be taking them. And they expect that the students will take them. They are our highest level of instruction. And if you want to go to a Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, you better be studying in your high school at the highest level possible. So that's our AP system. Just to make sure you understand, transfer credit at a university doesn't include a mark. So they'll get a credit for the course, but they won't get a mark for the course, right? And I think we're on to our next topic.